Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to discuss about law of diminishing marginal utility. So now first we will see what is this law and who has given this law. So law of diminishing marginal utility has been one of the fundamental law of consumption in economics. It is a law of consumption uh, in economics. It was first introduced by Gaussian. It is called as what? It is called as Gaussian's first law. Alfred Marshall, who is the founder of neoclassical school, he has popularized this law of diminishing marginal utility. So then what is utility? So utility is nothing but it is the one satisfying purpose of goods and services, and utility is subjective. It is according to the mental attitude of the people, how the people thinks. Based on that, it is dependent. Utility is not absolute but relative. It is related to person, place, time, and so on. It is like relative and it is not absolute. So there are two kinds of utility. One is total utility, another one is marginal utility. What is total utility? Total utility is the utility that is derived by consuming all units of a particular commodity. Now take an example that I have a water. So now I am consuming water. At the time of consuming water, I have consumed like 3 units. So from consuming 3 units, I have totally consumed 3 units, and from consuming 3 units of water, how much utility I will derive, that is called as total utility. Here total utility can be calculated as marginal utility, which is derived by consuming first unit, marginal utility which is derived by consuming second unit, and marginal utility which is derived by consuming third unit. I will get the total utility. So now what is marginal utility? Marginal utility is the additional utility which is derived by consuming an additional unit of a particular commodity. Here I will be consuming 3 units. So now at the time of consuming first unit, this was particularly I can say that I will be deriving this one is my total utility, and at the time of consuming second unit I will be having 10 as a total utility. So total utility of a n means this one 10 minus 5, that is equal to 5, which is my marginal utility. So next one is meaning and definition of law of diminishing marginal utility. So law of diminishing marginal utility states that as a consumer increase the consumption of any one particular commodity without taking any intervals. There should not be any intervals. He should consume the commodity continuously, and at that time his marginal utility of that commodity goes on diminishing. Total utility increases up to a point. After reaching particular point, total utility also diminishes. So here consumer, he goes on consuming a particular commodity continuously without any interval. At that time his marginal utility will diminish. In other words, it states that as consumer purchase more and more units of a particular commodity, the the utility of that commodity becomes lesser and lesser. Now consumer has particular commodity and he continuously purchases the same commodity. At that time his utility for that commodity becomes what? It becomes less and lesser. Initially it will be more, but after purchasing a lot of commodity his utility becomes lesser. So according to Alfred Marshall, additional benefit which a person derives from a given increase of his stock of thing diminishes with every increase in the stock that he already has. So whatever additional benefits which a person derives by a given increase in the stock of things, first he will be having a stock of thing, and if there is increase in stock of thing, he will derive what? He will derive additional benefits. So if there is increase in the stock of thing, continuously they increase that stock of thing, and at that time his utility for that will diminish. That was said in this definition. So now what is the assumption of law of diminishing marginal utility? First assumption is that rationality. It requires consumer to behave rationally. Rationality means consumer should think and then he need to proceed towards purchase. So he must make sound decisions at all the time. Then we are calling it as rational. So the law assumes that consumer try to maximize his utility, but his utility is subjected to incomes. As you know that income can't be unlimited, there is some restriction on income, so he can derive utility only up to his income. So he can purchase commodity up to his income. He can't spend more than his income. So utility, he has to, with the limited income, he has to derive maximum utility. That was said under the assumptions of a law of diminishing marginal utility. Then continuous consumption, it means that consumer continuously consume every additional unit of the goods, and here there is no interval between the consumptions of the two goods. There should not be any intervals. Okay, he should consume continuously. Cardinal measurement, utility can be measured by using cardinal numbers like 1, 2, 3, etc. Professor Alfred Marshall has said that it is possible to measure the utility. So standard unit, the unit of commodity which is consumed, that must be in standard unit, and the unit of commodity which is consumed, that should be standard and uniform in size. For example, now a person consumes a half glass of water. At the time of consumption of first unit, he consumes half glass of water. Then at the time of consumption of second unit, he should consume half glass of water only. So therefore, it should be standard and uniform in size. Taste and preferences of the consumer, that remains constant. It doesn't change. It remains the same. Identical units, same commodity should be consumed. That means if a person consumes a glass of water at the time of consumption of first unit, then at the time of consumption of second unit, he should consume the glass of water only. Okay, therefore the commodity which he is consuming, that should be same. So marginal utility of money remains constant. So this law is based on the assumption that marginal utility of money remains constant, and marginal utility of every commodity, it is independent, that doesn't depend on another. No change in the price of commodity and its substitutes, and there is no change in the consumer income, that remains same. That was the assumption of this law. Now we will see the law of diminishing marginal utility schedule. In this schedule, a person, they have given that the person is going to consume 6 units of water. At the time of consumption of first unit, total utility is 10, marginal utility is 10. And at the time of consumption of second unit, total utility is 18 and marginal utility is 8. And at the time of consumption of third unit, it is total utility is 24 and marginal utility is 6. And at the time of consumption of fourth unit, total utility is 28 and marginal utility is 4. And here you can see that till the consumption of fourth unit, total utility has increased, but when fifth unit is consumed, total utility remained constant. When sixth unit is consumed, total utility starts to diminish. So in marginal utility, we can say that to marginal utility that goes on decreasing. When total utility is constant, marginal utility has become 0, and when total utility starts to diminish, the marginal utility becomes negative. So, law of diminishing marginal utility can be explained with the help of diagram. Here we can see that OX axis that represent unit of water and OY axis that represent utility. That may be a total utility or marginal utility that was represented in OY axis. So here TU is the total utility curve and MU is the marginal utility curve. We can see that total utility that goes on increasing and marginal utility that has been decreasing. So when total utility becomes constant, marginal utility has become 0. When total utility starts to diminish, marginal utility has been diminished. So that can be studied, this law can be studied with the help of diagram. This law is not applicable to money. A person doesn't derive utility or satisfaction from money. Even if he gets a lot of money, he will not be satisfied. So this law is not applicable to money, and this law is not applicable to rare collections like antique coins or antique collections and all. For that, this law is not applicable. And another exceptions of law of diminishing marginal utility is diamond water paradox. This concept was given by Adam Smith. Many economists believe that the prices of commodity was equal to its total utility. Thus, goods which gives less total utility should be valueless, and the goods which gives more utility should be valued more. There is difference in real life. One obtains more utility from water than diamond, but the price of diamond is more than water. This situation is called as diamond water paradox. So this is one of the exception of law of diminishing marginal utility. This law is not applicable to art and knowledge. For example, a person may not derive satisfaction just by acquiring little bit knowledge. Everyone is interested in knowing more, and this law is not applicable to art also. A person, if he's interested in particular art, he is very much interested in knowing about that art in depth. He will not be satisfied just by knowing one or two things. So it is not applicable for abnormal person. This law is also not applicable for misers as well as drunkard. So this is about law of diminishing marginal utility. Thank you for watching this video.